Have you ever heard of a man named Gerald L.K. Smith? If you haven't, you are forgiven. He is no longer a famous figure, but in his day, he was a famous-ish guy, a preacher and political figure. At one point, he ran for Senate in Michigan as a Republican. In 1944, he ran for president against FDR. He ran on the ticket of the America First Party, which he had founded. Gerald L.K. Smith did not get far with that presidential bid or with the Michigan Senate bid as a Republican either. If Gerald L.K. Smith is remembered for anything today, it's probably mostly for this. This is a statue that he erected in Arkansas in the 1960s. It's called Christ of the Ozarks. Christ of the Ozarks was the subject of a suspiciously huge fundraising operation by Gerald L.K. Smith. He died in 1976, but that statue still stands in Arkansas today. But Gerald L.K. Smith is about to have another moment in the public eye, because what he really wanted to be remembered for, even more than that statue, was a nationwide movement that he tried to build. A movement that he named and that he led and that he promoted tirelessly and that he wanted to outlive him forever.
Motive behind the term Christian nationalist is easy to define and simple to interpret. We believe that the destiny of America in relationship to its governing authority must be kept in the hands of our own people. We must never be governed by aliens. We must keep control of our own money and our own blood. In other words, we must remain true to the Declaration of Independence. That is nationalism. We believe that the spiritual symbol of our statesmanship is the cross, which indeed is the symbol of Christianity. We believe that the inspiring dynamic out of which America grew is Christianity. We believe that there would be no real America such as we love and for which we're willing to die if there had been no Christianity. Thus, when a Christian is a nationalist, he becomes necessarily a Christian nationalist.
A Christian nationalist. That was Gerald L.K. Smith speaking in the 1950s as both a sort of pseudo-preacher and a political figure on the American right. He was the spokesman and the founder for this movement that he called Christian nationalism. And if that is ringing a bell for you at all, if it feels, despite the, annoying music bed with that speech and the guy's weird speaking style and all that, if that language that he was using feels like it rhymes a little bit with today's news, you are right about that.
Republicans really need to recognize the people they represent. Okay, they're voters, not the lobbyist donors, not the corporate PACs, not those people. That's not who the Republican Party should represent. We need to be the party of nationalism, and I'm a Christian, and I say it proudly. We should be Christian nationalists.
We should be Christian nationalists. You are seeing that phrase and that sort of branding from the Trumpiest members of Congress. That's Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. You're also seeing it all over the place in headlines now about the way the Trumpiest part of the Republican Party is kind of branding itself these days. Christian nationalism on the rise in Republican campaigns. Christian nationalism is reshaping the Republican Party. The reason this Christian nationalism thing is an awkward fit, the reason it's maybe not going to be an easy path for today's Republican Party, or at least it shouldn't be an easy path for today's Republican Party to bring this back, is because they're not inventing this phrase for the first time. And we're not ignorant to history, and we know what it meant the last time, right? Christian nationalism is not a new concept. It's not a new American right-wing political concept. The reason this ought to be awkward for them to try to bring it back is because the last time as a country we tried that on with guys like Gerald L.K. Smith leading the way, they were really not shy in saying exactly what they meant by it. So I'm going to play you a little more Gerald L.K. Smith here. I apologize in advance for the annoying music bed coming back, but also specifically for the content of what you're about to hear him say.
Subversive forces exploiting sentimental nitwits are reading into the Constitution a code of conduct which threatens to mongrelize our race, destroy our racial self-respect, and enslave the white man. Fight mongrelization and all attempts being made to force the intermixture of the black and white races. Preserve America as a Christian nation, being conscious of the fact that there is a highly organized campaign to substitute Jewish tradition for Christian tradition. The most powerful Jewish organization in America is the Anti-Defamation League, which has launched a campaign to remove from all public schools any songbook which contains a Christmas carol or any other hymn which mentions the name of Jesus.
They're coming for the kids. They're coming for the public schools. They've infiltrated the public schools with their anti-Christian. Christian nationalism. Gerald L.K. Smith, the leader of the Christian nationalist movement, speaking in the 1950s. He was the leader of that movement in this country in the World War II era, around the time he was running for president. He was also a leader of that movement in the post-World War II era. And I have to tell you, what I just played you, that's kind of the mild stuff from him. The stuff about the Jews taking over the world and how Americans need to be Christian nationalists because only that can stop the worldwide Jewish conspiracy, not to mention all the race mixing. I mean, that sound I just played is the milder version of what Gerald L.K. Smith was famous for. He was a virulent, violent racist and anti-Semite, and that was the core of his movement, Christian nationalism, which you'd think would make Christian nationalism kind of a hard thing for today's Republicans to try to raise as their new banner. You think that would be a hard thing. They apparently do not have any qualms, particularly from the Trumpiest members of Congress and particularly from the Republican nominee for governor in the swing state of Pennsylvania, a man named Doug Mastriano. He's been kind of a case study for months now, and Republicans actually trying to pull on their best Gerald L.K. Smith masks to make the Republican Party the Christian nationalist party he always wanted and that he spent all those sad decades trying to create. A paid consultant for the Doug Mastriano campaign, again, Mastriano is the Republican nominee for governor in Pennsylvania. The Republican Party has chosen him as their candidate for governor. A paid consultant for Mastriano's campaign is making headlines today, thanks to the watchdog group Media Matters, starting to document this guy's own pronouncements on the threat of the Jews and on the Christian nationalist movement as represented by candidates like his guy, Republican Doug Mastriano.
So, no, we don't want people who are atheists. We don't want people who are Jewish. This is an explicitly Christian movement because this is an explicitly Christian country. Now, we're not saying that, we're going to deport all these people or whatever. You're free to stay here, right? You're not going to be forced to convert or anything like this, but you're going to enjoy the fruits of living in a Christian society under Christian laws.
That is a consultant on the campaign for the Republican nominee for governor in Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano, clarifying that it's not the plan to forcibly deport the Jews. Just to be clear, that's not the plan, for now. But Jews are not wanted. Jews are not part of the movement that this new Republican governor in Pennsylvania represents. So Jews, atheists, people of other faith, they won't be forcibly converted or deported. Now, that's not the plan for now. It's just that this is not for them, nor will this country be.